was just not. I didn't get as much sleep as I should have last night. I'll admit that.
And whose fault is that?
That is my fault and Netflix's fault.
Only yours. I need to loosen up a little bit. I need to loosen up.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our weekly devotional time. And look who's back with us in
Yeah!
person.
Woo!
Leslie Daniel is
Raise
back.
the roof.
In the house.
Awesome to have you back. How'd it go being away for a while? Was it weird?
It was very weird. It's good to be back here, but it's weird to be here. So
Who can blame you? You're sitting next to these weird guys and
Yes.
would probably feel weird. But how you doing?
I'm great.
We
That's
know
probably
that's a
the
lie.
fakest great.
we're not
Today's been a
convinced.
weird day. I'll have to admit that.
All right, are you ready for the question of the day?
Oh, boy.
Sure.
All right. Think of a time or times, or at least a mindset of you're asked to do something and you think that those rules or instructions or guidelines are just ridiculous. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And you don't want to abide by them. Have you ever had a situation like that in your life, either as a kid or currently? I don't know. A time where you were given, here's what you're expected to do, or here's the rules, or don't do this, or do this. Don't say it. And you just think that's ridiculous.
Well, when I was in college, there were quite a few rules and regulations that we did not agree with, that we were so against.
Give us.
One of them specifically was curfew.
You must have gone to a Christian college.
And then, it was the whole thing of like, well, we're adults and we can do whatever we want. And so I, won't say exactly how many times this happened, but there were a few times that we might have snuck out a little bit and to go get food. Because here's the problem, was we always got hungry around midnight. And so, it's like 11:55 and we're starving in the dorm. And so we want to go out and get something. But you have to have your late night pass turned in by, I don't know, like 10 o'clock or something like that. And so it was like, well, what else are you supposed to do? So we usually snuck out a few times because we're rebels. But
Wow. How about you, Les?
Wow. Well, I am a rule keeper.
Yes, she is.
I love rules. And so I can't really, not that I don't break them occasionally, but I can't really think of, I may or may not have snuck out once or twice of my house, but I even at that, we would make plans to do that, and then I wouldn't show up at the.
Follow through.
I wouldn't follow through. I'd say, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea," and then so then my best friend, she'd come and knock on my window, and you are coming, and so it's of course all her fault. I would never have broke the rule like that, but.
We thank you for your honesty. And Wally enjoyed, great job there with Leslie. She wanted to keep those rules. Anyway, before we lead the entire world astray. Well, today we're looking at Naaman. And so we're in 2 Kings chapter 5. And we're not going to read the whole story, but we're going to read parts of this story. Because sometimes we're told to do things, and it's really to our benefit, no matter how ridiculous that we think it is. When we're told to do something or to not do something, typically, and I am the parent of no. Like I'm the one at home trying to make sure Jack and Bo survive in this world. And so I've adopted the nickname Mr. Crude because I'm so concerned the boys are going to get hurt doing everything that I forget to let them have a life, right? So I'm sure Jack and Bo already are like, here's my list of things I think are ridiculous. But these things are given to us by our parents, by our authorities, by our RAs and our colleges and our congregations and our governments, whatever. Because they really are to our benefit, and we have to have that they have the best idea in mind for us. We got, what's the word we use around here? I totally forgot what it is right now. But
Assume goodwill.
Assume goodwill. Assume goodwill. Those who aren't there just to make our life miserable. And some people even view God that way. I'm jumping ahead. So let's dive into the word. Let's see, Leslie, if you'd read for 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 8 through 10.
When Elijah, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the men come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. I'm sorry.
Through 10.
Oh, through 10. So Naaman went with his horse and his chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elijah sent a messenger to say to him, Go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed.
All right, Caleb, and you got, no, you don't. I've got 11 and 12. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot, and cure me of my leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than any of the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. All right, Caleb, now you have 13 through 15.
Ooh, okay. Naaman's servants went to him and said, My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, Wash and be cleansed? So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel, so please accept a gift from your servant.
All right, so there we go. The story of Naaman. And again, that's much abbreviated version. There's a lot more to that. What are we reminded of between the interaction between Naaman, who's coming from a different country, to Israel to see a prophet of God in Elisha? What are we reminded of in that interaction? What do we see there, whether related to our own lives or just in that moment?
Well, Naaman had an expectation of what he thought he was going to get.
Right.
And then when he didn't get what he thought he would get, that he needed, I think it was too simple for him.
Okay.
And so then his first response was, I'm mad, and went away in a rage.
Right.
So I think he had an expectation and it wasn't met.
Okay. So riding into town, he's thinking this is a possibility, this could work. But his mind wandered into a different way of how this was going to happen. And so that expectation wasn't met. When I look at it, again, it reminds me of not just about the simplicity of it all, but the fact that when Naaman shows up, the first thing we notice is that Elisha doesn't even answer the door. He sends a servant to answer the door. I think that has something to do with rage as well. So not only did he have an expectation, but he found himself, I believe, as we read this, in a position of authority that deserved a certain response from who he's going to visit. And he felt berated because, well, doesn't Elisha know who I am? Don't send your servant to the door. I want to talk to you, servant of God. So not only does he not get Elisha directly, he just gets a message from his servant, and the message does not meet his expectations. And so, he just like, I'm out of here. But then his servant stopped him, and they're like, wait a second, right? And what's their response to Naaman? Like, what do they try to get him to do?
Isn't it worth a try?
Yeah, isn't it worth a try? And the funny thing is, they even say, if he'd asked you to do this spectacular thing, wouldn't you have done it? But he just tells him to go down to the Jordan. And if you've studied the Jordan at all, it's not a real clean river, just kind of muddy, right? And so he's insulted. It's a simple task. We've got water like this that's even cleaner back home. I'm out of here because I've been disrespected, not greeted the way I deserve to be treated. Right. But his servants convince him to at least go try it. And what I find interesting is he gives them very specific details too. Go and dip yourself how many times?
7 times.
7 times. What if Naaman would have only dipped 6 times? Well, he wouldn't have been cured of his leprosy because he would not have been obeying the prophet of God. But he dips 7 times. He follows the instructions, and how is he restored?
Completely.
Completely. And it says his skin is like that of a young boy, which I find interesting.
Oh, right.
So though he has an expectation of his leprosy being cured, I think when he finally follows the simple design of will you obey this based on the prophet of the Lord? If you obey this, your expectations from the other end of things are going to be superseded. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, it will supersede your expectations.
Yeah, they're going to be greater. Like, he just wants to have leprosy cured. Now he gets his leprosy cured, and he's got the best skin he's ever had. You know?
Right.
So, bring it home. What can you teach our viewers today, no matter what age you are, based on this principle of following God's plan, even if it's simplistic?
Well, the thing that I go straight to is just that we have to be basically, just stripped of ourself, of thinking about ourself, because that's what he was thinking about, that he was important and that he should be greeted in that certain way, and that he had all these expectations of what that would look like, and so that had to be totally stripped away. And we, sometimes that has to happen on a daily basis.
Yeah.
For me, that I get, so full of myself that I can't then be obedient to what God wants me to do, because I'm thinking about myself and not what needs to be done and what God wants me to do.
Well, think about the time we are in right now, in these changing times. We are told to do things that are really simplistic, I mean, staying 6 feet from someone isn't that hard to actually do. Spending time away from a certain spot for a while is really not that hard to do. We may not like it. I may not find it enjoyable, but the action itself is pretty easy to accomplish. Wearing a mask, washing my hands, these sort of things. Why have we been giving these sort of instructions? We've been given them because someone has thought through, and they may be wrong, but at least for what they know right now, they have thought through ways to keep me safe and my family safe. So I can sit there and go, well, that's ridiculous because I think whatever. Or I can go, you know what, I don't understand this right now, but I want to keep the best interest of not just myself, like I said, empty myself out of that equation and think of others. So I want to keep everyone else safe. I mean, I like washing my hands that much. I may not like putting a face mask on. But I'm going to trust in that situation for now until we really have a handle on what's happening right now.
Sure.
Because again, it's not just about me. It's about the big picture. Not just even the people today, but people down the road. What we can learn about what's happening in our world today based on the evidence we have and the procedures we're told to do. So that's where I was going with it, personally, practical in the thing.
It's an inconvenience.
Yeah, it is an inconvenience, but it's an important one that we can abide by. It's something we can do. And honestly, do I like it? No, I don't like it. Who does like staying 6 feet away from anyone or not being able to visit a certain place? I hate that. But I'm going to do it until we can figure out what actually is happening and be able to be an example. That's the biggest thing. Christians, if I have the number one takeaway, let's be the best example of following God right now than any other time in history. Right? Let's not get all high and mighty. Let's not be better than everyone else. Because again, this pandemic has evened the playing field. Everyone in the world is experiencing this. We're all trying to navigate it together. So, Christians, this is our time to shine.
That's right.
And I hope that we will. This isn't the time for us to join in the complaining or frustration or anger, mob mentality, even if you're feeling that on the inside, which is something we can address another time. But, it's okay to feel a certain way, but you have to choose to shine as Jesus Christ has told us to be different than the rest of the world, right? So again, I totally get it when people are struggling and have many different viewpoints on what is actually happening. What is actually happening is irrelevant to how we respond to what's happening. So I'm hoping to abide by every guideline that's been given, especially as a leader in a congregation that we have to lead this congregation right now. I don't like the mandates that are given. I want to be back together, sitting in rows next to each other, passing communion with all the kids in the classes that they choose to go to. We can't do that right now. And that frustrates me. But I can be a great example of going, I'm frustrated, but I'm going to hang in there until we have a really good idea of how to do that again. Right? Because that's what we'll get. The whole goal is to get to that at some point down the road.
Well, you're responsible for that.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's just what's been kind of tough the most about being in a leadership position is like, how do I go about this? Because how I kind of navigate through this could also influence other people. And so it's like if I'm walking around going, well, this thing isn't even a big deal and blah, 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 then, specifically in my world with youth, but especially with other adults, like they could possibly latch onto that and follow that. Or some who are taking this seriously may look at me and be like, well, you're being foolish in a sense. Whereas if I, might be too over the top with it and being that person to walk around like a living Lysol can and disinfecting everything I come in contact with, then that might spread kind of the anxiety or the fear a little bit more. And so it's been really tricky, at least for us probably, and all other sorts of leaders, as we try to navigate through this, because even going to the store and stuff, it's like I don't like going to the store now because I don't want to wear a mask, but I know I should, and I just don't want to deal with that craziness. And so I'm like trying to figure out like when's the best time to go so I'm not bumping into too many people and that sort of thing.
So you don't get caught.
No, I wear a mask. I promise that. You can ask Wes. And that sort of thing. So I'll still wear my mask, but it's like, it's just, it's weird. And I do it, I do it partially because yes, the guidelines recommend that, but I also do it in the sense of, I know that I'm in this leadership position and I just don't want to put myself in that position to where it's like, I'm portraying myself as somebody who doesn't seem to care or anything like that.
Right.
So,
And, for me, the thing I think about is people can choose to wear a mask or not wear a mask or whatever it is that's going through their mind. Everyone can do that. But how I respond to that person who is wearing a mask or who isn't makes all the difference in the world, right? So that's when I look at our society today, what I notice is there's this clash coming. It's close, like it's about to make impact. And people are aligning themselves on these two different sides of what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing, and that's fine. I'm all about having differences of opinion and thoughts and all that. But how we respond to one another, we should always be responding in love. Even when these regulations that are put on us are simple, we may not understand them. We may think they're ridiculous. Naaman clearly thought to go and dip in the Jordan 7 times was going to do nothing for him, besides the fact he'd already been disrespected in his mind, right? So he would have lost the moment of healing had he left in anger. Let's embrace our moment of healing in the time we find ourselves in by cooperating and loving one another, whether someone chooses to wear a mask or not. Any last thoughts?
Assume goodwill.
Assume goodwill in these changing times. Assume goodwill. I like it.
Yep.
Anything from you, Lysol can?
Nope.
All right.
Just get ready when you see me in the store. 'Cause I'll be,
All right. Well, it's been another great week, and hopefully, if you enjoyed this, or make sure you hit the subscribe button or the like button. That helps. And also share it with somebody. Yeah, point to somewhere. I'll try to put it there. Just point over there. Hit the subscribe button.
Boom.
The other devotionals are found over here.
Down here.
I'm gonna put them nowhere in the right spot.
Probably like right over
cover
my
your
face.
face up.
Yeah, just cover me up.
The
It's like I have droopy eyes today.
The playlist is right over Caleb's face. That's his mask for the week. So, all right. Remember, no matter what we do, we should always remain
Jesus strong.
Jesus strong. That's right. All right. We love you. Take care.
Bye, guys.